whole night last night looking through our new books, trying to get some inspiring ideas for paint jobs or for something. And these are the best. This is one of the best collections of books I've ever come across. And now added to our collection, courtesy of Ken Thompson, we now add this one to our collection, and this is one of the better ones. A lot of documentation on this one. Now, just to give you some idea of what a nice quality book this is, there's just, I mean, there must be 1,000 pictures in it, but there's so many nice ones. There's some of the rarer photos, well, obviously most of them, if not all of them, are black and white, but some of the rarer photos that show some real details of the carrier-based guys. This would have been real handy to have when we did the Seafire. Give you a little idea of just what's involved in these books. It makes for just the best reading. All the details, all of the things you'd ever probably want to know. Dropping belly tanks, changing a motor. Look at this, a big Jim 60. I don't know, it just doesn't get any better than this. Oh, the late model Contra prop ones. Oh, God, if we could only make that work on a Tiger 60. Look at this radiator detailing. One of the late model ones. Cannon detail, exhaust details. And here's the late model, the very late model Seafires that had the back piece of the rudder that dropped down to make the carrier hook. That was one of the hardest things. Look at this, it was so hard for me to research this out. Here it is right in the book, late model Seafires. I only got this book a year too late. It's the whole problem. Look at this, all the details of the carrier hook. Yeah, Wendy, you got to be a little faster on the trigger here or something. Here they are on the carrier, the Seafires on the carrier. All the Seafire carrier paint jobs, Contra props. A great book. Don't want to belabor this. Just wish I had more years to devote to this. Anyway, back to the shop. Enough books for today. Now, we've had a very eventful couple of days here. First off, we had a snowstorm that was a pain in the neck. It blew us behind, and we had to spray some of the silver filler in the snow. And I did something as a little test here, and I'm going to see if this was going to work. What I did, I usually never put filler out over the tissue. I like to do the tissue itself with clear dope. And what I did this time, I sprayed the whole thing with a mixture of silver filler. And the idea being maybe I could see my mistakes a lot sooner or earlier on in here. And I think maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know if I'm fooling myself here. It's close either way, but there's still some little spots. Just let me see. This is what the silver filler shows you, that normally when you have blue or purple or some other color in there, you don't really see those mistakes. Here's another one up here. But I want to start sanding this out. Obviously, get out the oldest blanket or bed sheet you have. I usually have one. It's all dirty and everything. Just for this, even though Karen washes it, it doesn't come clean. All these little rough spots here where I had gone through the tissue in an attempt to try to get it nice and smooth. I like to look this over before I start. Then I have to make a decision. Now, there's a rough spot right along in here. There's a lot of choices that I have. I can do this wet. So what I do is, I can do it dry, I can do it with steel wool, I can do it with sandpaper. So I give myself a little time and do a little test to see which is going to cut this material. Now this material, it's not the same every time you paint. When you paint on a hot sunny day, the paint dries up, it gets hard in a hurry. This paint is still kind of soft. So I want to see, I'll do a little test on each part of it and see which part of it now, which way I'm going to use to be able to cut this. And which method is going to cut this the best. And I really won't know until I try each one. I really try, if at all possible, to do it wet. That seems to always go the quickest, but when you have soft paint, it's best to try it both ways. Now, if I was able to put this away for another 2 weeks, a week, which would be my first choice, then any way you do it would be okay. But on a day when it's got minimum drying time, best to do a little test. The first thing I want to do, I want to try a little test. This is 320. Usually 320 is a little rougher than what I like to use, but again, you never know. When paint is soft, a lot of times you can use rougher than normal sandpaper, and just don't press too hard. Let's see how it takes it off. I'll do a little test here. What I'm doing, I'm moving my fingers down the sandpaper each time I do this, so I get a legitimate test, not one that's, once that builds up, you really don't have a legitimate test. And it should be, two things will hurt you. If you let the sandpaper build up with the gray powder, or if you let the surface build up. So you're constantly wiping it. You can see how quickly that cuts. And that looks pretty good. Well, we're going to try others. Let's just see how quick we can get this to work. Now, I'm usually pretty aggressive about sanding. I like to think of it as exercise. You know, people sit on a jogging machine all day long or on one of these moonwalkers or something, and they think they're making a beautiful body. Well, if you wet sand all day, you'll have nice big arms. You'll look like a gorilla when you're done. Okay, I'm guessing that's okay. So I'm going to put that aside. I want to get a piece of 400 out. We'll give some 400 a try. Tell you one thing I learned from being sick the last couple of days, there's this medicine called Cold Ease, and you take one every 2 hours. So what I did, I put the bag of, they're like lozenges, I put them right up by the VCR, and every time I change a tape, I take a lozenge. Well, seems like it's working pretty good. I've only been sick 2 days now, 3 days. And the 400 looks a little bit better. Now you can rub your hand and see which yeah, that feels a little nicer. Now the hard thing to get people to understand here is this is what it should feel like, what it should look like. You should just leave that little mottled look, like it's a duck's egg, or there's some word for it, mottled, I think. And it should feel nice and smooth. When you've accomplished that, there's no point spending any more time and energy than you have to doing this. This will be fine. And then we can get, if it stops snowing out there, get a coat of real silver on here. This can be drying while we work on that spar mold. Oh, I really don't like to use steel wool. I always give it a fair test. Steel wool usually works best on sand and coats of clear. This is 4-0 steel wool. I always like to convince myself that I'm not losing my memory. And it's not cutting it. This paint is too soft. Now if this paint was a little harder, it would cut it. Let's see, let's go back to the old 400 and see what happens. Yeah, see, the 400 cuts it right away. See if you can get a look at this up close. Let's see how close I can get. If you can see, it's putting sanding scratches in it. Turning an open bay. So it looks like what I'm going to wind up with here. In fact, I want to try one wet. Some 400 dry. Now the advantage to this can be, a couple of advantages to being able to have choices here. First off, on a day when you can get some ventilation going in the house, M600 is fine. You should always use that with complete ventilation, a fan blowing on you, doors open, windows open. Obviously that's not the case today. And Karen has been tested for all these allergies and things, and any of the chemicals I can avoid using, I try like heck to avoid exposing her to any chemicals at all, and so far it's helped a whole lot in letting her deal with the allergies. Now see, that's a good start for having a panel. Now if you were to just keep using this corner of sandpaper, it's going to take forever. You got to, if you really want to make some speed, When you sand dry, you got to throw a lot of sandpaper away. I just want to do, this is the part most people have a little hang up with. This is why we put all that extra dope along the edge. Is so right now, as soon as I see that that wood color or that silk span color coming through. Now, one of the things that little thing we stumbled upon in doing Kenny's Nobler, that yellow tissue was a big help, because boy, you could see that coming right through the filler as soon as you started to sand it. So if this is the first time you're doing it, you might want to consider using dyed tissue. Now, I always like to get it when it's brand new sandpaper to get the corners. Otherwise, you're just grinding away and nothing is really happening. And I would say to sand out a wing like this, 3 to 4 hours for the whole thing. I can do that in one session. I can do that before lunch. But a lot of times, if it's tough on your arm, you might want to do half of it and then, you know, do something that requires using different muscles. Go shovel some snow. Anyway, get that cap strip right out onto the edge. Now, when we do the I-beam Spitfire, of course, there's going to be 57 bays top and bottom. We'll have to come up with a, I hope, a little bit more exotic system than this, but we'll be working on it. Oh, I just want to see if there's going to be any big advantage. Of course, we're sanding filler here. We're not sanding silver. We sand silver, you almost have to use M600 to get a nice cut. But again, I'm trying to experiment with the silver filler. I think ultimately I'll come up with some kind of a formula that'll work for me. But it looks like it really does save maybe 1 or 2 coats of the clear or the sanding or something. You can get it done. Now this, we've never sanded the tissue in this flame. This is the first time sandpaper has ever touched the tissue. And I didn't spray the clear. Had I sprayed the clear, I could have saved maybe another step in this. This crazy weather we're trying to work around. I don't see a big advantage to doing this wet. It's basically taken, at least it feels like it is, the same amount of time to do it wet as dry. And like I said, the problem with the ventilation here, when I open a door and put a fan on now, you freeze to death. It's 20 degrees outside. Really not practical. Okay, we're going to sand the rest of this out dry, it looks like. Now, other than doing a test with all the different, I guess, obvious techniques, there's the things you have to work around in this house. There's always the ventilation dust problem. And there's nothing better than, I guess the biggest tip you can give somebody in sanding this talc silver filler, actually in sand and silver, it's really not as much of a problem because you're always doing it wet, is just to keep the dust off. Constantly change your dust, wipe your sandpaper in a towel or in something that you can just take and throw in the laundry. Karen doesn't even bother washing these anymore. It just takes so long. All right, about the halfway point on one panel here. It's a good time to take a coffee break. It's taken me roughly 45 minutes to do one panel. So prorating that out, we should be done by lunchtime, and that should be ready to spray the first coat of silver. Now the last thing I want to do before I get ready to go paint this, and I hope the weather's going to cooperate. Painting in snowstorms and ice storms and rain and oh man. Anyway, get this as clean as I possibly can. Blue's the nice tablecloth. That back in the laundry. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. There's so many things I want to get done today. Sneaking up on Christmas, and every night it's been Christmas shopping and wrapping presents and making ornaments and everything. That's unbelievable. Anyway, every time you start one of these, it's like climbing Mount Everest, and you just wish it was over. Well, It's over. Macho. Alright, now I'm going to go try to figure out how I want to spray this outside. Get a coat on. It's good and cold out there, of course. Anytime you finish this much sanding in one session, though, you're ready. I mean, you really do deserve a break. Luckily, I got my little tip weight box to do a test on. I'm going to mix the silver with about what I've been doing, about 5% retarder. I have a little cup marked with a 5% per 8-ounce cup. Real scientific. But that can change from minute to minute around here with the weather as we're having it. Look at what we got to deal with. At least it stopped snowing. Now it's still snowing just a very little bit. Just a few flakes. I can live with that. Maybe I better go right to 10% retarder. Quit fooling around because I want to get this painted before it gets dark. Now it can't be that cold out when it's really below about 25. The fluorescent light doesn't light. So it can't be that bad. Anyway, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, hey, this is pretty decent. You can see right through the wing here, the light coming through. Anyway, I got to go mix the silver. I'm going to try hanging this thing. I put some nails up in the ceiling here. Try a little bit better system so I can paint the whole thing all at once because I want to get on a very thin layer of silver. Let's see how this works out. I went back and forth with the mixture a little bit. I made it a lot thinner than I thought it would have to be. I don't know which method is going to work the best. Once I get a coat of silver on this, I want to go back over all the edges at least a few times. Like where the silk span and on the cap. Cover everything except those edges. Now, last thing, see all the silk span is going soft equally. I want to get one more coat around the ribs. Everything's going to dry up equally out here. I just want to go over this one more time around all the perimeters, and then I'll set this sucker aside to dry. Boy, is it cold out here. It's getting cold and damp and nasty and football weather. Now I'm trying to I marked this before I poured it to show which line of separation, because once it's together I wouldn't be able to tell which is which. I'm hoping I'm going to get this apart without any damage. Ooh, that's the sound you love to hear, isn't it? And I don't want to destroy the plug in case this didn't come out exactly the way I want. I want to be able to reuse the plug if I have to, or modify it, change it. Oh, man, this is like going through pine. I better do the other side too. Good thing I marked both of these sides. And it's starting to come apart. You can see it's starting to separate, but it doesn't want to separate along the whole line, and I don't want to force it and break it. So what I'll do, I'll just run that knife blade down there. There it goes. This is when you start saying a prayer that when it gets apart, you don't have a mess inside. Well, believe it or not, it looks like it's a decent pour. Now, because I've used a different resin, a different molding rubber every time I've done one of these, it's always a problem. It's a problem that you never know what to expect. In this case, using a PVA made a nice surface. In fact, there's only one spot on here where the molding rubber didn't cure. I see one error spot here. And I'm wondering how I can correct that. I'll figure something out. The only flaw in the whole mold is this one little spot here. See, I didn't mix the catalyst enough. That's what that little imperfection is. See how it's kind of marbly and swirly here? Well, even though I thought I mixed it even more than I had to, I guess I didn't. But anyway, there's the plug. And we have a relatively nice surface to work with now. So let me clean these edges up. And I can actually start cutting parts, figuring out how I'm going to, if at all, if this is going to work out. Again, this is time to do a little thinking. What happened to this little bad spot, and thank God that's the only one, I can live with this. What I can do is a couple things. I can lay a piece of Scotch tape over this, which is I think what's going to be choice one, even though it won't really stick. This is what I say, even after you think you have that molding rubber totally mixed, you need to go in and mix it a little more. But I think I can live with this. This is something I can live with. Because what will happen in the cast part, that'll just show up as a flaw and I can grind it out. That won't be a problem at all. Everything else looks pretty decent. I'll tell you, you get a, I don't know, feeling sigh of relief when you, this is over $100 worth of material here just to make this mold. And it looks like we have it. A try. I don't expect this will really work, but just so it seals up that edge, this will help catalyze that, and I can put a little piece of Scotch tape on that. Even if it doesn't do it today, at least it'll eventually make a hard spot there, and I could probably trowel in a little bit of this molding rubber. Next time I use it, I could make a repair. I think I'll just put a piece of Scotch tape over that. That'll be fine. Keep trying to convince myself this is going to be fine. But that's the only real flaw. Everything else, I've got a base now and I want to start cutting out material. Most of this I can just peel off, and some of this is the extra resin. Hold the plane on an angle. Try to get rid of, want to keep a nice surface up here. Obviously what I'm trying to do is get rid of any sharp edge up here. Ken donated some of this, and I was trying to figure out if there's going to be a way to use it. This is, it might even be Bob Violet stuff where George Spar sells it. It's already cured and it's unidirectional. So I would like to cut some pieces up to try to lay them in here. And of course I have the soft carbon fiber also. I'm trying to use the same technology I used on those 5-bladed props where I can put some, what amounts to be some of this little pre-cured stuff right inside the mold and some end grain balsa. This is real thin. This is probably just a couple of thousandths. That feels like about 10 thousandths. Anyway, we'll see what we can do. Now I have the heavier stuff, obviously, for the center. I'll see how many strips of this I can get off of here. Again, a lot of decisions, a lot of different ways I can lay this up. Certainly before I go and put all the labor into this, I'd like to figure out which is going to be the most practical way to do this. Especially if I'm going to be doing it over and over again for other people. I'd like to make sure there's some consistency in it. This stuff really is strong. This is unidirectional. You could probably tow a car with this stuff. All right, first thing I want to do, I want to lay a piece of this in here and let's see how far it goes out. Oh my God, plenty. Plenty. I want to strip off a few little pieces to drop in there. Now I thought about trying to make it, since this is the strongest material, this will go in the center. Also, this will be a 1/4 inch. This will be what the ribs actually butt up against. And it'll actually go almost the whole length, just out at the tip. Let's see how many strips I can get out of this. You always want to watch you don't get splinters with this stuff. This can really ruin your whole day. I can actually lay this right in the mold before I even put the resin in, because this will be on the outside. I'm just trying to think of different ways I can use this material here. This is the kind of thing where when you do it the first time, when you're Columbus crossing the Atlantic and you don't have a map, you got to think about it a little bit. I'm not so sure one piece of this wouldn't be enough, but I want to make this as strong as it obviously possibly could be. We have plenty left. Looks like we're going to get 3 rows top and bottom out of this material. Just this material alone, in fact. Then I want to cut the cross pieces that are going to be end grain balsa. So I'll have all the parts ready, and when I fill the mold with resin, I can just drop the parts right in and hopefully have a successful pour on the first shot. I just want to get an idea as to how many of these I can actually fit in a mold at one time. Now I remember putting those 5-bladed props together and packing a mold with these pre-cured unidirectional pieces. What I want to have is each one to be a little different length too. I don't want them all the same length, of course. So I can stagger them, stagger the joints. I can get 4 on each side, it looks like. Okay. See, now that I know I can get 4, I can cut this other stuff up and use that as a very perimeter piece. Because it won't matter where the joint is in that, it's so thin. I just noticed another thing. I got to clean the tape residue off of this carbon fiber. See, this is the real thin stuff, and I'll use this along the edge, and it won't matter where the joint is because I can confine the joint. The joints will always stagger, but try to get as few of them in the middle as possible. Trying to figure exactly, I'm dividing everything in half and seeing how many of these I can fit in each side. I want to have this figured out ahead of time. Needless to say, why cut the wood? Hard enough to figure out exactly where to get the lap joints on this. because this tapers as it goes out to the end, so I don't want to have the joint right at one of these uprights. Worked out almost perfectly if I can get one thin strip from one side. This really gets complicated because I don't want any of the joints lining up. I want it to be like a mortise job, like a mortar job where all the mortar seams are not in alignment. If I get the two thin strips, the joint to the first heavy strip comes here, and I can start again. I don't want to line up with a brace. I want to start another joint here. I'll see if I can get a second one in here. I want all these pieces. You see what I'm trying to accomplish? Is I want to have these be at the load carrying members, and then I want to put end grain balsa here. When I pour this, as I push the end grain balsa in, it'll make a molded part that'll really have end grain balsa all through the middle, and it'll also have all these little reinforcement pieces in carbon. And around here it'll just be doubled up with carbon. Okay, I laid this out just to see how I would like it, and the only thing I'm not happy with is I don't think the thin pieces, I think I'm going to replace, since I have some extras, replace the thin pieces with thick ones, since I'll have plenty of room to double up in the middle here, and then I can use all my extras, my extra little scrap to fill in these middle blocks. I tried to do, I put all these little pieces out here. I want to come up with another solution to this. I wasn't happy with the way all those pieces were laying in the mold, so I'm going to get some of that Dave Brown, that flexible toe. First thing I want to do is I want to get this mold so it isn't walking around a table. It'll also keep the resin that I'm using from sticking. That's another good idea. Again, what I'm trying to do here is, you know, had I already done this, or if I had done it off camera and then run over and put my white clothes on, so I look like I know what I'm doing. There's really a lot of experimenting going on an ongoing basis, and believe it or not, that's probably how they do things in the real world. They try to do them and see how they work. I don't know if that's true with this kind of work, but I was not happy with the way that was laying in there. I want to try the Dave Brown toe, and I want to just see how much of it takes, because I want to get the end grain balsa pieces pre-cut before I mix the resin, and just, there's stuff getting in there, get some idea of just how this is going to lay out, almost like a little test run, like a little dry run. And this is just normal toe. It comes in a nice pack. It's a little bit thicker than the stuff I had gotten from George Spar, but this will be fine for filling the mold. Now the idea is, when we're laying this up, is to try to get 52% of the actual weight of the part to be carbon. 52% is the ideal number. Obviously, if it was 100%, it would fall apart. If it was all resin, it would be very brittle. At 52%, that's where this material and the resin achieve their maximum strength, supposedly anyway. I think we're in such overkill here that it wouldn't even matter unless we were going to, you know, sit on the plane while it was flying. But anyway, I'm going to try to achieve that in the final mold, so that anywhere there's just little edges of loose resin, I'll pack it with the toe. Now, another thing, Bob Martenzer, just spoke to him this afternoon. He had told me is when this material is done right, and of course he's working at Boeing, when this material is in the resin at 52%, it approaches the strength of steel. So that's kind of nice to know. So let's hope we're in enough overkill here that you know, we're not going to make some flimsy part that won't work, or something that'll be so heavy, unnecessarily heavy. We try to achieve that balance, and the only way you try it, the only way you're going to get there is just by trying it. roughing out some end grain balsa pieces here because I want all the grain to go straight up and down. The problem is I want to undercut it so I can get a strip of that hard material in there. And what I did, I just took the plug itself, let me do this over here, took the plug itself and pressed down to make an impression on a part to give me a rough idea where this would start. I want to leave just enough material, that looks nice, just enough material around the perimeter. I can get some of that hard carbon in there. Now obviously I'll just go down to each piece, and I need to know exactly how far out this is. So I can take another piece of material. I want to keep the grain vertical as possible. Again, I'll make it oversized and then just trim it to fit. Then I can just reverse the parts for the other side. For instance, that I'm this far in already, and I know I have these little dots put on here. So if I line up the dots, in fact I don't even have to line up the dots. I can run my finger up and just take an impression of where this is. And that impression will give me a line to work with, and then I'll just sand it little by little by little until I get that exactly to fit in with a little bit of clearance on top and bottom. And again, if in doubt, just cut it a little bit oversized. That's what's nice about having this cutting pad. It really does save a lot of, this is one of these good tools. Saves a lot of wear and tear on the old blades. Now I was just thinking of one thing, I ought to just use these pieces for patterns and then make a whole new set so I don't have to do this over and over again and leave these as patterns. See, little by little I have to invent this as I go along. And I can go right down the line now. This really does make it easy. I ought to make a pattern up. This would be the easiest way I know of to do this, because obviously I'm going to have to do it over and over again. I wonder if the RAF knew about this. What I ought to number these in such a way that this is A. As I make the patterns up, this is A. This segment will be B, because I'm going to wind up with a set of patterns. Actually, I only have to make patterns down to the middle of the wing. Because if this spar isn't equal, I'm in trouble already. Let me just see how we got this. Okay. A, B, obviously this will be C. As I get toward the middle of the wing, I'm going to be using, I really almost could get away with 3/32. That's solid. I really should make the 2 center pieces at an 1/8 inch, so I'll just trace this over. Well, I don't know if this is a pattern, 1/8 inch. And of course this is the center, make 2. Okay, now I have all of this stuff laid out in individual pieces. Now you might be thinking, why not just make one big piece? Well, the problem that I'm thinking about is, first off, I want the grain going this way, but I could glue 12 sheets together and then trace this out from a pattern. I certainly could do that. That wouldn't be a problem. I just think this will give me a little more flexibility as far as loading up the mold. I won't have to be as dead nuts accurate. But I have given it thought. It's something I'm trying to think about and come up with the best solution possible. Again, and I'm not afraid to change my mind if I have to. Now I've marked this where each one of the joints winds up in each one of the letters. Now the point is, this is how this evolved, and this is over the course of maybe a couple hours. I started out thinking this would be the easiest way to do it, would be to drop these pieces in. Then I thought, yeah, if I put them all in one piece, I could glue them all together like this and just drop this strip in. That's another thought. But then I had another idea. I can make the piece instead of having to cut all these patterns. Again, the way this is evolving, and I'm trying to share it with you, is I started out, again, thinking I'd make all little patterns and I could drop these in as I was doing the layup, the hand layup. And the second thought was, well, I'll glue all these together, make a pattern, I can just drop this in like a strip. Well, how do you figure this shape? It'd be a little difficult. So what I did, I took the original template out, using the template, and again, this is what we needed Bob Martin's accuracy for. I did 2 center lines, so I used this center line to draw this side, this center line to do this one, and it leaves me just enough room for that pre-cured carbon stuff to go in there. See, now it still leaves a little radius and plenty of room for the rest of the toe and everything to go in there. So now having this is a pattern. The next step is I need to make 2 of these up. And all this is 3 32nd balsa. This is nothing special here so far. But it needs to be accurate. It needs to be, I think that was an improvement in just starting off, and we can just put these away for now. But just coming up with these little ideas as we go along, this is what makes it interesting to try to figure this stuff out. There's always one piece of the puzzle you just can't seem to figure out. How do you do it? How do you figure that angle? How do you figure that? Well, and then when you figure it, you say, yes. Now I want to have a 1/16 of clearance, top and bottom. So what I decided to do, and again I've been going back and forth, see, by using this edge right here, this will give me half of the amount. I can take this over to the cutting mat and just cut it nice and accurate. That's why it paid to take all the time to get these patterns accurate. It seems like in the beginning like you're spending a lot of time for nothing. Now we don't need the tape, of course. But in the long run, it really is worth it. Now, needless to say, I got to watch as I cut through the glucine. The piece is vulnerable because there's no strength in this dimension. The strength is all in this dimension, which is the whole reason for making a spar with the grain going this way. And I'm hoping when I pour that resin that it'll lock this shear web in a way that if you glued it to the ribs, it wouldn't be exactly the same. It wouldn't even be close, in fact. Again, you get ideas and you develop little techniques as you go along. It's just one of those things. But you have to start somewhere. Little trick you can use on other different similar projects. When you have all the grain going this way, this piece right now is really vulnerable. I mean, you try to sand this and it chips and breaks. A good thing, these sanding strips that are attached to the table, as you're pushing down, it helps hold it in place. In fact, you don't even have to hold it. And it's a good way to, I just want to dress this off so I don't have a sloppy edge on one side. And then, of course, I'll make up the other side and then lay the 2 pieces in a mold and make sure I have the fit that I want, that it's accurate. This you can use on any other project where you're dealing with a lot of end grain. You can see how brittle this is right now. Okay, and that piece fits in there with exactly a 1/16 clearance, so when we actually do go to do the layup, I think tonight I'm just going to get all these little parts made up. I'm not actually going to do the layup till tomorrow. But it'll give me plenty of time to think about what are the possibilities here. And you're always inventing little things as you go along. In fact, my mind is in overdrive right now, trying to figure out how I want to get the toe in there, the edge strips, the little strips this way, some extra little splicing in the middle. But once this is done, you can repeat it forever. I could just use one part. Obviously, it's the best of all worlds when you can use one part to replicate the second part. Any kind of pattern making, that's an advantage.
And how are all those little dreams that never did come true?
Now I want to drop these in. Make sure I have that clearance that I'm looking for around the perimeters. Center joint is nice. There's a high spot right here. If I can, because these are still flimsy parts, this will just be more or less a handle that I can maneuver this around rather than reach it in with my bare hands. I'll ultimately take this and cut this off. It'll also hold it flat in this dimension. Again, this is invented as you go along time here. Yeah, that'll make putting it in and out of the mold a lot easier. I can just cut that off when I'm done. Okay. What I want to do, I want to lay out all the little pieces in wood instead of in carbon so that I have two choices when I go to lay this up. Just make up all the little spars, the little caps that are going to go in there. I could strip these pieces off roughly. Just get a rough idea of how thick this is going to be. And actually, this will press right into the mold. This will be nice. So it's kind of evolving as we go along. Little by little by little, it's evolving. These pieces will get pressed right now. They should be a little shorter. It'll be okay up here. And you got to kind of evolve the thing as you go along. You really never, I don't know, I never do anyway. Never really have it all figured out until you try to make a prototype up. Just paint this with resin and then slide these in. So this will be contained within the resin. Be molded right in. I laid up some wood pieces that are just going to be filler pieces that are going to get laminated in. Laid out all the wood stuff, and I guess this end of it we're pretty well set for. I just want to figure out what I want to do in that middle section here as far as strengthening it up. I want to try to figure some way of, well, I can't do it that way. I want to figure some way of getting some carbon fiber right in this middle area, because if this is ever going to break, it's going to break right in this middle section. It's never going to break out that far. Let me think about getting some carbon fiber in here. Little notes as I go along here about how I laid this out and how I laid it up, because if I do this 2 or 3 years from now, for sure I'll forget about it. I might forget next week, in fact. Anyway, so far the only thing that's still baffling me is how to get some carbon fiber mat in that center section. I'm not sure I can make a commitment on that yet. You'll have to think about that. And whenever I need a little time to think, what I do is just clean up the work area and try to, as I'm cleaning, think about how I want to do this. It's the next part of this puzzle. I happen to have a piece, believe me, I didn't think I had this, that looks like it's going to fit. I can cut a little pattern. This is the stuff I was using at the hubs of the 5-bladed props. And this is really some high-tech stuff. I know you can't even cut it with scissors easily. I have it stitched around the edge, so maybe I'll figure out how I want to do this. There's so much thought involved in this. Should be able to just drop this right in. That'll leave the little string on there too when I'm laying the mold up. See, this will give me some strength when I cut the bell crank out. In fact, I ought to cut a couple of these and see how many I can pack into the mold. Because I'll have the pieces giving me the strength this way, and this will give me the compressibility. Boy, this stuff is a witch to cut. Okay, if I get 2 layers of this in here, I think I was making an F-16 here or something. That'll just bring me up to the height. So when I drop this in, actually I need 3. I need a 3rd one. Okay, now with 3 layers, that brings me up. This is really going to give me extra strength when I cut that hole for the bell crank. Also, this will give me I hope, some strength to mount the gear to. I can somehow figure out how to mount the gear blocks to this, or the gear attachment point. See, now I want that to be just as high and level when I mount in this. And then this will actually, I'll put some weights on this to press out all the extra resin. Yeah, the more I'm working on this, the more I'm getting excited about it. Okay, so we got that figured out. Fortunately, that's all I'm going to get done tonight. Sleep is calling, but anyway, I feel good about getting this part of it laid out, getting all my strips cut, getting my material ready, got my toe, got the thing. Got some notes on how I want to do this, and see, now I can think about this. Actually, I give this a whole nother evening of thought before I have to commit into doing up a prototype. And then we'll see how it comes out, and hope for the best, as always.
We're in ProStunt headquarters this afternoon. Wendy's going to begin molding the spar for this year's plane, I-beam carbon fiber spar.
And what we're doing, we're mixing up the resin. This is highly toxic stuff. You have to wear rubber gloves, eye protection, hand protection, every kind of protection possible. We have fans going throughout the house to vent it. This is dye that we're going to use. So what I need to do is weigh the cup and the dye all in one unit. So what the black does, it allows us to see the low spots in the mold very easily. This is going to be a rather complex mold. We need to weigh the dye and the cup in one shot. Okay, so the total weight with the resin is going to be 113. We'd like to get this exactly to 113. And we set the scale. Then I know when I'm coming up on 113.
Now, what part of the mix is this?
This is the resin.
Okay.
This is Epon 815 resin. You'll see that scale start to move pretty soon. You need to mix this at 100 to 13. And you don't have much variation at all with this material when you're making propellers and wing spars. It has to be right on the money. It can't be off by a lot.
I can see the end of the balance beam.
Yeah, it's going to start to move soon. There we go.
There it goes.
There you go. Now you've got, use the scale, 113 it is. Okay. You put the resin away. Oh, I gotta get that off. That sucker's really on there.
Well, after a little bit of cursing and
A lot of cursing. God.
and working on this, we have the container open. Now, what card is this?
This is the TETA, and I need 13 grains of TETA exactly. And what this does, this is the stuff that's really toxic.
We're both wearing respirators.
There's special filters in this one. Once you put too much catalyst in a resin, you can't go back to getting an accurate mix, so you have to do it this way, the only way I know of to do it. And it's got to be 13:1. That's a critical number, very critical for this material. When you want to achieve maximum strength, which is approaching the level of steel. Yeah, we're getting close to it now. This is not like polyester resin where you can just put any amount you want in. Okay, that's it on the TETA. Here's the resin.
Wendy's put the catalyst away, and he's going through great pains to clean the scale and the equipment.
Okay, we're ready to pour.
And the catalyst goes into the mix. So what are you doing now?
I'm stirring the resin 2 minutes longer than you think you have to is the normal time. And one of the few mistakes you can make with this material is you don't stir it enough. Even though it looks like it's thoroughly mixed, it really isn't. These are also special cups. The cups themselves are made out of a special non-waxy material so it doesn't contaminate the epoxy. Special mixing cups. Trying to bury each one of these little supports in its own little bath of resin. You got a mask? Once I fill this trench up, I can start laying in the carbon fiber to coat.
the way that goes in critical, or does it just have to go in?
Just has to go in. It's all unidirectional. Just want to fill the cavity as much as we can at this point.
How was the mold prepped before?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Silicone rubber mold. No preparation. I'm trying to put all the big pieces in, the long pieces first, and the short pieces will go in. This is a tip-to-tip piece.
The last piece on the top. Just let the ends go out of the end of the mold. Started the layup on the bottom channel of the spar. First painting in a layer of resin. And coming back with our carbon fiber. First the toe, then these thicker unidirectional bands.
Have 5 already cut if I'm not wrong.
Okay, Wendy's packing the last 2 pieces of toe into the bottom channel of the spar. That's the wide carbon fiber, the Dave Brown stuff. Packing it in. 3 layers?
3 layers, yeah. Now we got to get those wood caps ready. Where are those wood caps?
I'll find them.
We got to get as many weights on this once I get the other side done. It's starting to get cheesy here. I've got too much material down toward the middle, but it won't matter. As long as I get weights on this, it'll be fine. We can put on this. You got any ideas? Okay, let me just put this away. Let's put this out.
You can see right in this section the carbon fiber is actually oozing out of the mold. We should be able to trim that when we pull the piece.
Oh yeah, that's oozing out now. 2 blocks. We can use this piece for now. We just need 1 inch. There you go. It's on a truck, right? Let's make it with the half second.
It's up, but better than luck.
That's definitely got some weight on it now. No doubt about that. Put more up there. If I had more weight. got good compression. I'm happy with that. Good while we're ahead. Okay.
Okay.
This turned out to be a lot more of an adventure than I thought it would. I've been babysitting this for the last 4 hours. But it's time to go to sleep here. This is enough. The resin looks like it's starting to harden. And we've still left, we're going to leave the door to the cellar open overnight, of course, and then try to come up with some way of post-curing this tomorrow. No, it's going to be an adventure. But hey, if you don't try this, you never know. This really was a lot of work. Believe it or not, this consumed the better part of a work day. Oh, it is a nice chilly 20-degree morning as I'm waiting for this spar to cure. Got all the snow squared away, and I get a call from Jeff Stifel, who I haven't seen in crying out loud in a year or so. And he's got tickets to the Giants game, so we're going to head out. They're playing the Redskins for the title today, and if they lose Stifel, you're in big trouble. See, this is what I like. Once every 4 years, I get to use my binoculars. Anyway, off to the Giant game as soon as he gets here. Just in the Christmas spirit and having a Giant game. This is the first time they're really playing for the title in so long. I don't know. Seems like forever. Look at these nice handmade Christmas ornaments. Anyway, as soon as Stifel gets here, I want to show Stifel a tree. Now he makes a village every year too, so something we can share. I don't know, man. We're all in the Christmas mood here at the Ertnowski household, and we'll be in the Christmas mood if the Giants win this game today. Oh, man. I remember going back to '86 when it used to mean something. Oh, my God, was it fun. And Stifel used to get tickets all the time. That's the only reason we stayed his friend, really. Look at these Cardinals. Cardinals. Man alive. What a life. As I'm waiting for Jeff to get here, I'm sitting out on a porch. It just dawned on me. Jeff, with those big glider wings he's been making, he may know somebody has an oven I can post-cure that spar in tomorrow. Now what happens is that spar has to be cured, like to cure this squirrel in an oven. That spar has to be cured at 212 degrees for 2 hours. And we have several choices. One is not to tell Karen and do half of it in the oven at a time. I don't think we're going to do that. Do it with hair dryers, and I have a thermocouple I can use. I've been just thinking about it, but again, this is all part of the inventive process. You know, it just never ends. And hey, anytime you can take advantage of somebody else's technology, you should always do it. I always do anyway. Look, this is the table we were building on. Just the other day, we were sanding and building on this table. Ugh. I'm so glad we got that done when we did. Kenny, you don't know how lucky you are, baby. See, the point that I'm trying to make is time management is so important. And for me, one of the reasons I've become at least reasonable at using my time efficiently, because I always have to deal with stuff like this. I have to paint around, sand around. And you get good at it. I guess if you live in a warm weather climate, you never have to deal with the weather. Or if you can paint inside like I used to be able to do, it's less of a problem. But anyway, just evaluating my whole situation. You're trying to think about how I'm going to post-cure that spar. I can think about it during the game, that's for sure. Ah, Christmas, such a wonderful time. Look at this bum.
Hey, dude.
Go Giants! What'd you do, buy another car?
Yeah.
Man, you must be making some money.
No, I travel over an hour.
Really?
Come on, let's go.
All right.
Stuff later.
All right.
You're not taking the camera, are you?
You're not allowed to take a camera to Giant Stadium. No, I was just taking pictures of the pond all full of ice and everything.
Cool. Come on.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. You're ready.
Oh, man, it's too noisy.
Yeah, it's getting old. 31-30. Giants win the NFAC East.
Have you oiled them up at all?
What?
Have you oiled them up?
Yeah, that's a real 1950s trolley. So what do you got? HOs under your tree this year?
No, not under the tree. Just in the
Nothing.
basement. That's nice.
Anyway, the game, we're so cold, it's unbelievable. How cold was it at that game? Oh my God.
Oh, it's toasty.
Okay, I pulled the old spar out of the mold, and it came right out, believe it or not. And I got all this flashing to trim off the back. But the first thing is, the specifications of this material call for a post-cure. Now, a post-cure on any of these high-end epoxy resins means that they should be cured for 24 hours in a mold, and of course they reach a tensile strength here. But now to take it to the next level of tensile strength, what needs to happen, this needs to be baked, cooked, whatever you want to call it, at 212 degrees for 2 hours. So what I have is a heat probe. I talked to a couple of people yesterday that are very knowledgeable, including Bob Martens. What would be the best way to do this? Now, the glider people that build glider wings like this, what they do is they wrap them in electric blankets and just let them cook. And that's kind of an inefficient way to do it. I have a heat probe now. What I'm going to do is wrap tin foil all around the perimeter of this, and using a Monaco, a heat gun, a hair dryer, 2 hair dryers, heat lamps, whatever I can, generate the temperature of this up to 212, and basically try to stabilize it at 212, try to keep it there for somewhere around 2 hours, and it should then reach its maximum cure. Then when I'm all done tomorrow, one of the things I think I can do is trim all the flashing, or do all my webbing in here and everything, which is easier to do right when it's done. This section is the part that really matters. This has the most amount of resin and cloth and everything. I think the center of this you could drive a car over. And I'd like to shoot for, when this is all done and finished, get some kind of realistic weight on it. I don't know what a realistic weight would be, other than the fact that the spar in the 1200 sweeper was 3 ounces. I remember that. We'd like to try for somewhere around 3 ounces when we're done. Don't forget, this takes the place of, on a typical D-tube wing, it takes the place of 4 pieces of sheeting, center sheeting, trailing edge sheeting, tip sheeting, and I estimate that's between 3 and 4 ounces of sheeting is what I'm trying to replace. So again, if I can make this piece ultimately, if I can ultimately wind up with this at 3 ounces after it's all done and carved and sanded and cleaned and prepped and ready to put in a mold, if I can get under that, that would be nice, but I don't want to sacrifice any strength. I'm looking for that, the overall strength more than anything else, and durability. And again, it's a learning experience, seeing how this works out. Now, just to get a rough idea of what a wood spar would be had we made this out of 1/4-inch wood, at a 1/4-inch spruce this would be. What I do, I have my 1 quadrant, and 1 quadrant of this weighs, let me make sure I'm getting it accurate, 20, actually it weighs exactly 1 ounce. So that means, just roughly, if I was to make this spar out of this kind of wood, just to get a spar this size and this thickness, 4 ounces would be probably a good starting weight to think about for that piece. Now, if you made it out of balsa, obviously you'd trade away some of the stiffness, and in doing so, I don't know that you'd ultimately be the winner or the loser, but somewhere between 3 and 4 ounces would be a target weight. The difference with this material, if this piece becomes 3 ounces, this is absolutely this actually is exactly the same as a carbon fiber propeller. So if we get this piece down to 3 ounces, I think we'll have the same weight, but in effect what we'll have is we will have something that's double, triple. Actually, Bob Martens has told me when this is post-cured properly, this particular resin system and this particular amount of carbon, if we're roughly at the 52% carbon mark, we can expect to approach the strength of steel. Again, we'll see when we're done, but we got to figure out how to post-cure this.
I'm going to dress some of these edges off. I don't want these little pieces getting in my way making splinters.
Okay, after trying my little trick that I thought I was going to get away with using a monocoat gun, I couldn't get enough heat. I couldn't get this part to go up to 200 degrees. So I made a phone call to somebody who I think has a lot of glider experience, and they said if you're going to wrap it in tin foil, and what I'm going to try to do is put it in the kitchen oven so that half of it cooks at a time. And the tin foil will keep any of the fumes out of the house, keep it smelling nice, I hope. So I'm going to wrap this up in foil. Again, we'll know. I got to see if this even fits in there. The other choice was George Venturini gave me an idea of making up my own little autoclave down at the shop where Ken is going to be. And we might be doing that real soon, but we don't have it today. That's the problem. So today and you're really supposed to post-cure this 24 hours after casting it. So I got all the edges roughed out. Well, let me give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? I'll have to make a wood spar. Now, of all the ways here that look the most practical, I can only get half of the spar in. I can get it up to the halfway point, and I have the door wedged open with pot holders. And I've got it set at the temperature I want for 2 hours, and what I'll do is I'll take and turn the other side in. And again, you got to kind of invent this stuff as you go along. And let's hope that if there is any fumes or smell or anything, the tin foil will kind of contain it. Again, this is the way I did some of the 5-bladed props, and it seemed to work fine, so we'll find out in 4 hours. Now I'm back at the table, and I wanted to lay out some strips on the back of this, basically to thicken up the top. All of the support I need is in the top little piece here, and then I want to kind of put some lightning holes in here. But the first thing is I took some of this stuff that Ken had. This is the pre-cured carbon. It's unidirectional. I want to lay out some top spars on this. This is just a little bit, you know, I'm just beefing it up just a little more than it already is. And I don't have a piece that'll go tip to tip, so I'll put the joint as far out from the center of the wing as I possibly can. Now the trick here is I'm trying to reinforce the outer perimeter of this as much as I can. Get as much of the strength up in the outer, as far off center as I possibly can. So this is nice material to work with, except for one thing. If you get a splinter, boy is it bad. You don't want to get splinters with this. And once I get this laid up, I'll let it dry under compression. See, out here, as far out here, it won't really matter where the joint is this far away. All of the strength I really need is going to be right in the center of this. Okay, just want to let this dry up, and then we can start the lightening procedure here. I can get a gauge on what this is going to weigh. I did a little layout of exactly where I want to keep my upright bracings going, and I want to get a Dremel tool and just put the lightening areas right in, and I'll do that right with the Dremel tool bit, the sanding drip. This is what's nice about having everything organized here like this. Now in the last couple of bays I need to get a smaller tool, and then I need to lay out my lightning hole for in here, but it feels like we're coming up on the 3-ounce magic weight limit that we're looking for with this part. Burr that we got with the small sanding drum, well this is an excellent place to be using it. In today's mail, this is from Bill Mazzoni. Check this out. Bill, I'm telling you, this is absolutely unbelievable. Look at this little Spitfire model. Now, Kenny has decided, because he's such a nice guy and adept at making plastic models, he's going to build this for me for Christmas. Look at this little box. Oh, I love it. Oh, my God.
This is
Boy, does this bring back memories.
So cute.
Look at the gun blisters.
Oh, yeah.
It's got the cannons?
It's got the cannons.
Right.
It's got all the rivet detailing.
Hey, by the way, we just heard from Georgino. He has located some more pilots. He will be making pilots for the new, soon to be carbon I-beam Spitfire. Look at this. Boy, does this bring back? Look at a 4-bladed prop. Look at the little gear doors. Oh.
See the decals, yellowing.
All right. Yeah, this is all. Pack it in carefully. This is a collector item.
Oh, this is really quite wonderful.
Bill, you are okay. I'm telling you. I don't care what John Saunders says about you. Look at the little wheel wells. You know what you actually could do with this, Ken? You could pick up all the incline details off of this. And we were just over at the shop where Ken's shop is going to be, and George Venturini's son has a giant CAD-CAM machine now that he can do plans on.
You can give him this and have him just blow this little...
No, you can give him this whole plane and let him blow it up. This is the early model Spit with the, what mark is it? Doesn't say. Anyway, it's an early one with the rounded rudder. Turtle deck.
Yeah, it doesn't have
the little
blisters.
fish scale exhausts.
Well, it does have blisters, or does it? No.
That's great. Look at the little canopy. Oh man, these things just remind you of being a kid. They're like Lionel trains. Anyway, while Kenny's looking at this, we've been thinking, I've been working on this spar for a couple hours now and trying to get all the final little radiuses. I want to do some hand finishing on that. I'm going to do that off camera. This is great. Bill, thanks a whole lot. Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm ready to start working.
I'm ready. And has decided to build Wendy to scale Spitfire so he can be on the world scale team. And these are the ones that came from John Brodak, this Sterling kit, so he can win VSC. We have Spitfires everywhere. But the most famous Spitfires of all, dun, dun, dun. Oh, I love Christmas. I love Spitfires. Okay, one of the things we're trying to take advantage of is we have to wait till tomorrow to go over to the shop where Ken's setting up his foam wing business. And so we decided to spend a couple hours laying out and cutting ribs, and I thought I'd put some of this on the tape. Now, Joe made up these half templates, or obviously if you're working off some other kind of Mylar templates or whatever, you would just use the same kind of a patterning. But there's a couple of tips that'll help you in cutting out ribs. We laid out this wood, and I have more wood coming, but this for right now is what we have. It's all 1/8 inch, of course, because they're I-beam ribs. And you notice that the grain in this wood kind of fades down here. So you would not want to run. There's a couple of things you don't want to do. You don't want to ever try to lay out ribs like this so that you get one extra rib per sheet. You know what? It's a really bad investment. If you're going to lay out ribs, you want to lay them out parallel to the grain. So what you want to do is find the grain in the wood, and it almost never runs right down the middle. Let's look at this piece. In this case, it runs up that way, so you'd have a rib that way and a rib this way. How did this piece work out, Ken? I see the line is.
This is a nice piece.
This one looks pretty decent. Yeah.
Worked out well, and I'm able to. I'm trying to stick in these tip ribs. I can save a little wood by.
Okay.
By doing that sort of thing.
But you never want to. The thing I wanted to emphasize is we put a center line where we thought the grain was running down the wood, and it's running on an angle this way. If you were to lay ribs out this way, they almost every time with moisture change and dope shrinking, it's going to guarantee it's crooked wing.
Here we can show that on this sheet, for example. The sheet is of course rectangle, but the grain actually runs out what is now the top edge of this. So when we lay the straight edge along the check lines in here, we can see that the grain line actually runs kind of like that.
Yeah, it doesn't run down the middle. So you can just get a reference, just put a reference line down.
Put a reference line here.
That's our grain reference. Now if we were stripping, here's another point. If you were stripping ribs down where you take 2 templates and sandwich the wood together, what you want to do is cut a whole bunch of the blank ribs where you're going to drill the bolt holes, through the center line, so that the grain in all those sandwich pieces is going to be kind of on track. Less important on a D-tube wing, on an I-beam wing, super, super, super important, because that's all you have is the support of those ribs going over the edge.
Now you can see pretty clearly on this piece that our ribs are running up the piece.
Right.
So when I want to save a little wood, what I do is take and make another center line so I can tuck this rib in a little bit. And,
and of course, just keep track of the ones you already have. Like in other words, you're on 4 and 5. You know you're not going to get a big one in here, but maybe I saw what you did. You went way out to the tip and got 27 out of there.
Right.
Now also, we took a piece of sharpened brass tubing. This Joe Adamusco made this up. Ken put it in a drill press and put a razor edge on it for cutting the holes, and we've been cutting over the old XL Hobby Blades mat, and that mat has worked great. It's great for punching holes, cutting ribs. How many we got made up already?
We only have 4
made up. I've decided to concentrate. What I want to do is lay out a whole sheet and then cut.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I made a mistake. I ruined one, and what I did was I had
I had an extra line on here. I cut down into the wrong line.
Okay.
And I tried to save this from an R4 by making it an R15.
Just make a smaller rib inside
And
of it
now
using the same
I'll use an even smaller one. But what happens is if you... Back here, they're all relatively the same until they get right here.
Right.
And so once you screw this up, like I have this pretty flat right here,
Right.
you can't correct it. So sometimes
You could also, if it was a tip rib, you could just move this up so that you're not using the same hole.
Exactly.
It isn't important. It's real important. Now, you notice what we did with the ribs that go in the center of the wing, the R1s and stuff, they're C-grain wood. But as we get out to the tip, we're using the C-grain wood at the root and the A-grain wood out at the tip.
So we'll see. Here's a tip rib. This is an R24. So I can get an R24 out of that.
Yeah, you can sneak a couple little guys in there. Okay. That's a real efficient use of the wood, efficient use of your time, too.
6.
And they say that cutting ribs can make a drunk out of you. Well, you don't have to. He's already a drunk.
I started out a drunk.
Anyway, hey, we're closing in on having his... We got 4 or 5. How many pieces of furniture we have over there now? Maybe
5, 6.
We got some dressers. We got a big drafting table. We got a big table Mike Kajeski gave us the table from. So we're going to be actually putting a shop together. We'll do a little bit of it on tape, but you can see right in the beginning just how much work we're putting into getting this shop going.
It's going to go from no shop to real serious shop very quickly.
Real quick. And then I'm going to be cutting ribs for him, and I'm going to be drinking beer. Anyway, I want to go, and I'll do it off camera. I'm going to hand finish up that spar. It's been sitting over there all afternoon while we do other things. But looking forward to getting that shop working. Looking forward to getting a set of ribs that we can lay up one wing panel. It's all coming. This is just time-consuming, redundant work coming up here now.
Something that we might need some little measuring device for.
What do you need, Ken?
When we come around to these tip ribs,
Okay.
we need this little slot.
Just leave it marked, but don't cut it. Because we don't know if this is going to be 1/8 inch, 32nd. We can put that slot in as the last thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to want a real...
I haven't got the plan back from Joe yet, so...
A neat slot right there.
Yeah, we'll do a slot with, once we decide or figure out or whatever what size wood that's going to be. I didn't even look at the plan.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the things that this presents is when it's in this mode, of course it's very weak in this dimension, but it's going to be locked in by every rib, by 57. There's 57 ribs in this wing. The same way cardboard, well, this mesh here is another thing. If you take a piece of paper and lock it in, take pieces of cardboard and lock them in this way, which is what the ribs will be doing at 1-inch stations, this probably has a tensile strength. Now, I figured out that I have about 7 or 8 ribbons in here, and each one of which should hold about 200 pounds. So even given that, let's say 3 of them are not going to be as functional as they should be, I should be around 2,000 pounds of strength when this is held in a knife edge position. And so far, I haven't weighed it out because I want to hand finish it. I've been using the tape to lay out my little segments here, and I've been trying to keep them that they get a little further out. As I've been making, I'm going to try to show this. Out at the tip, I've been taking more material off, and then as I get up here, I leave more material on. I'm doing it all by eye. As I get up to the middle, of course, the part gets wider and wider and wider, and at the same time, it's thicker and more solid, and these become solid carbon fiber. So, again, I'm shooting for 3 ounces in the finished product, and it's all hand labor from this point on. And we got 70, roughly 2 3/4 ounces. It's 70, it's under 78, Ken. A taste under 78, 2 3/4 ounces. Now we're counting on the fact that this plane has 1-inch ribs to act like cardboard does when you have interlocking vertical surfaces, that they interlock much like a cardboard matrix would. That's what I'm counting on. Rather than these things, actually, I'll probably be able to take out once the wing is built. It's that the ribs in each dimension should lock right into this.
ribs to the good.
Okay. 9 out of 52. You got a sixth of a wing made here.
Yeah.
That means 5 more cans of beer, and you'll have it.
I'll have it licked.
That pad works well, though. That's one of the best inventions so far we've picked up is that XL, that pad for cutting on. It's a real, I don't know, it's nice to even work with it.
Well, this kind of work really eats up nice knife blades, but this.
Right, last night, the sum total of last night's work, got 1 set of ribs done, got the second set, a couple pieces of wood. We really don't have enough wood to finish the second set. So I figure what I'm going to do here this morning, the first thing is get a little test fit of the wing into the fuselage and try to get some of this ready so that maybe I can get the wing and the body today. The silver on this still is going to need a little touch up, still need some little spots around, but I'd like to get the plane all in one piece and just get an idea of how it's going to look, and kind of getting excited about this guy. He's going to be finished real soon. The idea is by pushing this in, I want to see just how nice the fit is. Also, I can see I got to open this flap, the little spot for the flap up just a little bit. But I'll pick up on the high spot here and just take a little chunk out, since there's going to be a fillet there anyway. I don't want to force it in and make a problem for myself. Now the first thing, the fit was pretty good. The first thing I want to do is just tack this in place with a couple of drops of epoxy. But what I want to do is mix up some slow drying epoxy, get it nice and thin with a hairdryer, move the fuselage over just a little bit so I have a good joint inside, and then I can wipe this whole area so that I get plenty of the epoxy inside. I made some little marks where my alignment would be, so I can push this all the way over. Again, the epoxy is so thick, I'm going to have to hit it with a hairdryer to get a nice bond, to try to get as much of this in there as I can. You can pack it under there with the brush. The most important thing, I guess, is from the high point of the wing forward. That's the spot I really want to work on. And what really helps get the penetration is the hairdryer. The hairdryer softens this right up. It tends to get it right in where you need it. And of course you want to babysit it for some amount of time, half an hour or so. And now I can push it back to the lines. Maybe even a little past, and I can work the glue in from this side. Think of on a profile, the most important joint on a whole plane is this joint right here. And you sure wouldn't want to cheat it or skimp it or whatever you want to call it. The last thing, get a little alcohol, just a little bit. I pretty much want to do the same thing on this side, force it back. Now what's real nice here is we have that nice double tissue in the middle of the wing. Now I'm going to babysit this for a little while, and I want to make sure the hinge line stays the same. And when I look right from the front that I haven't made a little misalignment out of the tail. Now this is just to tack it in place. This amount of the joint is just a tack. Okay, that's straight. Okay, as we look from the front, the tail drops down right on the money. The two hinge lines are exactly the same. So this should be ready. I can hit this with a hairdryer now just to get the glue to set up. Just can't take a chance that I haven't disturbed this while the epoxy was drying. Make sure from the front it isn't moving. Now I just been checking this as this epoxy cures. It takes about 45 minutes. Back and forth, checking all the little spots, wipe out all the extra that comes out, oozes out in front. Most of all, checking right from the front that I haven't got the fuselage on a little crooked. Once this kicks off and dries, I'll glue this little piece in here, and I'll be ready to fill in the little gap. Now see, there really is still a little gap. I want to fill that with thin epoxy. I want to tape one side of the fuselage and heat epoxy and send it down in there. But first this has to cure up, and this gives me plenty of time to babysit and make sure I have it right. Okay, now the epoxy is set up, and I want to take this little piece. This is the little filler piece. Get some epoxy, coat both sides of it, press that in place. There's also another little sliver that I have to press in. Since it's all going to get covered with a fillet piece anyway, I just want to make it structurally strong. Now I want to make sure I get certainly a good structural glue joint here. I want to wipe all the extra epoxy off with a paper towel. This will actually become part of the horn support too. I'm going to get some down in there by the horn support. I give this plenty of time to dry, and all the while, again, while it's drying, to make sure I haven't gotten anything out of alignment. Keep monitoring. It's very easy to get this out of alignment. When you don't check it, you walk away and gravity will take over or whatever. It's just good to babysit this a good half hour, 45 minutes till that glue is really solid. Now I just love looking at this guy sitting like in a position where it would be flying. And it looks like, I had listened to the weather report this morning, it looks like we're going to get a couple of 40 and 50 degree days this week. One of the things we're going to be doing on the next video is setting up Kenny's foam wing cutting operation over there at the shop. And hopefully, maybe even, well, we'll get the fillets on this guy. And hopefully start getting the paint work on. We want to make a little Cardinal paint job out of this. See, I try to look at it from all different angles. I think this is going to be a cute plane no matter what angle you look at it from. Really looking forward to getting this guy flying. Now, unfortunately, we did have an early winter, and we did have, well, the field is under mud and snow even if we had it finished, so we're not going to be rushing through on a paint, but I really do want to put a nice paint job, a nice finish on this, being this is the prototype of this model. And it may go on. I know John Brodak already has orders for several of these kits, but it may be that this goes on to be a real good selling kit, and there'll be a lot of them at the Nats. Who knows? You never can tell. Now, we really did get a lot done in the last week. We got the spar made up. We have half of the ribs cut for the I-beam wing. And things really in Kenny's shop is starting to, well, by the end of today, it should be pretty well shaped up. And I really have a lot of high hopes for this little guy. I can't wait to get him painted. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, and we will see you on the next tape. We've gotten so much done in the last week. I'm really excited about this. We're really starting to make some progress. See you on the next tape. And a special thanks to John Brodak for all this great music he's been feeding me. I really didn't know he was a DJ. I thought this was a put on. John, you're okay. I don't care what the girls out there say about you. We got the rods laid out, getting ready to lay out that I-beam wing. We got the spar down to 2 3/4 ounces. A lot of good things are happening, all starting to come together. First set of ribs, we still have to make another set. First set, just a rough weight, was 3 ounces. But again, these are all going to be hollowed out and, as Joe Adamusco says, gouged out. We're just waiting for some more decent wood to come to cut the second set. Hey, have a little respect for me. I'm a DJ. John, we respect you. Believe me, we respect you. Oh, and I just love looking at those semi-scale planes. And boy, I can't wait to get the other one in the rack. We got a nice empty spot in the parking lot for him there. It'll be coming. And the last thing I want to say to everybody and everybody's family is really have a very, very happy holiday from me and Karen. We all love you lots. See you on the next tape. There's not much better than at the end of the day of modeling, coming up and getting out the old Lionel trains. I'm sure Bill Mazzoni would agree with me. Get out the Lionel trains, get out some smoke pellets or whatever. And boy, we are really looking forward to having a great family Christmas and sharing it with all our friends. Thanks a lot for joining us on this holiday season. That is, you can hear the noise coming out of that trolley. That is a 1950s trolley, and it sounds like it's going to be needing a transmission or something pretty soon, but boy, I still love having these trains. Other than the planes, this is really one of my favorite things to remind me of being young. Hey. You could do a lot worse.
just go finish the Cardinal. I want to see the Cardinal finished. Stop playing with that Spitfire.
Yeah, me too. You're supposed to be finishing the Cardinal, you know. Summer's coming and we want to have baby Cardinals.
Oh my God. See you on the next tape. As always, have a great time. And this is a good time while I'm thinking about the minute or so that's left here. Start thinking about a good paint job. Something that'll really do this Cardinal up right. Up on a Spitfire wall of fame here. I love it. Man never has too many Spitfires.